All right. Where are we at in the Exodus story? I just told you which chapters, but in the story, where are we at? Somebody tell me. You're at Mount Sinai. And what's going on at Mount Sinai? The law is being given. So in 31, if you flip over to 31, what is the first kind of section of chapter 31? What's the first heading that's in most people's Bible? The tabernacle, the workmen that are going to do it, right? So we're at Sinai. This is kind of the last chapter in this section of Moses being up, gone for 40 days, as Theron pointed out right before class started. I really appreciate that these two men, they're named here. What's unique about these men? There's no right answer here. I'm not looking for a specific thing. Nothing. There's nothing unique about them other than what? They're skillful. God calls them out specifically and says, these men are skilled. I will tell them what to do. I will rest my spirit upon them, right? When we talk about God's Spirit, where else do we know about God's Spirit? Where else have we seen God's Spirit? Anywhere else you can think of? It's all over. Come on, just give me something. Resting on Jesus after his baptism. Who else? Spirit on the mountain. Yeah, the fire descended on the mountain. Came upon the apostles. So this word that's used here, Josh had this pointed out, the word ruach, which don't ask me to talk Hebrew. I definitely can't do it. But it's the word spirit. It's the same word that's also used in Genesis 1 where it talks about the Spirit of God hovering over the waters. And the only reason that even really matters to us is that it gives us another kind of picture of what the total definition of that word. So if the Spirit of God is resting on the waters and the Spirit of God is what does these things to the world, the Spirit of God is now resting on these men. So they have the power of God to do these things. It's also interesting, the same word that is used to say that the wind separated the sea as they passed through on dry land. The same word. So the wind or the Spirit is kind of an interesting detail. Second section of this. What's the second heading people might have here in chapter 31? The Sabbath. Is this the first time we've heard about the Sabbath? No. Where do we hear about it before? Give me some. Ten Commandments. I apparently have not copied all my notes over. Ten Commandments in Exodus 20, and then again in Exodus 23 for some of the laws. And then in Exodus 24, the people go up on the mountain and they say, we will do all that you have done, or all that you have said. Okay? Chapter 32 we get a flash change of scenery, right? So where do we go to in chapter 32? Who do we zoom in on? We've been with Moses, talking with God for the last, 5 chapters? And now we flash to who? Aaron. And what is he doing? He's definitely not on the mountain, figuratively or literally. Sure. He makes the golden calf. It just comes out of the fire. That's right. That's what he says. So Josh had some interesting points here, and we'll go through some of these. If you had to describe the people in one word, what would you call them? Throw me some words. Impatient. What was another one? Rebellious. Foolish. Struggling. forgetful, ungrateful. Anything else? Anybody got anything else? Sorry? They're children, yes. Yes. Josh had the word impatient. If he had, I didn't bother with his slides because I didn't make them, so I'm not going to try and use somebody else's slides. I will definitely do it wrong. But impatient is the word he had highlighted here, because I think that does kind of encapsulate most of these things that we're talking about. Do the people not know that they shouldn't be doing it? So that's kind of a double negative question. Do the people know that this is a wrong thing to do? Should they know that? Should they know that making a golden calf is the wrong thing to do? Absolutely. And why do we know that? We've already touched on it some. The Ten Commandments. Exodus 20, Exodus 24, they say, we will do all of these things. Okay, so they should know this. Does anybody think they are creating a new God, or are they trying to assign an image to the God that led them out of Egypt? Give me some opinions. Go for it. Okay. Anybody defend the other side to say they're making a new God? Yep, it does say gods. That's right. That's right. So, I mean, I don't know which one is right, obviously. I'll tell you my personal opinion. I tend to think they are putting God into a box. It's my personal opinion. I think they have seen all this power of God, and I don't think they were so quick to just forget it, right? How could you forget being led out of the sea, watching a pillar of fire defeat your enemies, watching this mountain catch on fire? The leaders of the people have gone up to the mountain and seen, what do they describe it as, like an emerald or sapphire place setting while they dine up on the mountain with God earlier in Exodus. So in my personal opinion, they are trying to put God into a box. They are trying to assign God into a box. But, to Will's point, I think that is based on what they have learned. Where have they been for the last 400 years? 300 years? Several centuries? Where have they been? In Egypt. And so they're obviously passing down their stories, right? Otherwise we don't get Genesis. But they're also definitely living in a culture that is not their own, right? They're living in a culture of polytheism. So whenever you absorb the culture around you, I think they are trying to fit God into what the boxes that they know, into the calves that they know. Yes? I have not done, I have not. Okay? I will step out on a limb and say I have read briefly in other places that the cow was very important in Egypt, but I have not done enough research to stand confidently on that statement. If anybody else knows, I'm certainly welcome to hear that. Cows have always been important. Everybody loves a good hamburger. Sorry? It's easier to sculpt a cow. That's right. You just kind of make a blob and then, yeah. Any thoughts here on the golden calf? On the people related to the golden calf? I mean, even there's some inkling of that, I guess, as you get into where they have the Ark of the Covenant, and they start using it, they start touting it like a weapon. They start touting it out to their battles, and we're going to win now because we have the Ark of the Covenant, which they ultimately end up losing because they do that. Okay, if you had to describe Aaron in one word, give me a word. Throw some words out. Frustrated or frustrating? Frustrated. Complacent. Pushover. Anybody else? Susceptible. Spineless. All these words, again, like Josh's word here was weak. Seems like he's weak. But why? Why did he act weak? I don't have right answers here, guys. Like, this is designed to have conversation. This is not me. Like, I don't know any more about Exodus than really any of you all do, okay? We need to be sharing thoughts about how the characters can relate to us, or how we can learn from these characters to not repeat these same mistakes, right? Yeah. Yeah. Peace to the Lord. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. I got to stop sharing my notes. That's not a good idea. I did. No, I think to that point, and what we talked a little bit about with Saul, and I guess in our class, so we're sitting in the back this quarter, but was we have the benefit of hindsight, okay? I get to read the rest of Exodus 32 and say, Aaron was wrong, right? I get to just keep reading and say, Aaron was absolutely wrong. God was very mad with Aaron. If I'm in that moment, if you're in a moment where you're supposed to be leading people and they are starting to grumble or they're starting to pressure you to do something, what do you do? And I'm not necessarily looking for an answer here, but this is just a way we need to think about these characters, to say, we are given the hindsight of he made the wrong decision, but if you're in a position where you're being pressured to do something, and you just go take charge and you start doing something, is that always the right answer? And so one of the questions I'm going to kind of try to end this class with, so I want you all to think about, is what value do we assign to prayerful thought or prayerful waiting in our day-to-day lives. So did Aaron take a minute and say, should I do this? Or was he scared and he jumped at what he thought was the right thing to do? Because as Theron pointed out before we started, it's 40 days. And nobody told them how long they were going to wait. Moses is going up the mountain, but did he say, I'm going to be gone for 40 days? I don't think so. The text just says, and Moses was gone 40 days. So I think we should think about it in those terms. Any thoughts there? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Heather, did you have something? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes, it does. Million, 2 million? Yeah. Yes. Yes. We're all men. And I don't mean CEOs. Don't think. You know what I'm saying? Like it. As mankind, we are fallible. As mankind, definitely will make mistakes. Right? We know we're going to make mistakes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I agree. And again, kind of an overall kind of theme of what I'm trying to get at tonight is I think the stories that we ingest matter. Right? There's a children's song, "Be careful, little eyes, what you see." Right? "Be careful, little ears, what you hear," which is not my favorite children's song. I'm going to tell you that, but is a truism to a point. right? The things you take in, the things you ingest, will absolutely change who you are. So we need to be in the world, but not a part of the world. They were in Egypt, and they were starting to become Egypt, right? So here we have the people kind of regurgitating the things that they have taken in over and over and over again, and Aaron doing the same thing, guiding them in kind of this weird hybrid of, well, we can be Egypt, but we'll be a godly Egypt. Anyway, how would you describe Moses in one word? Sorry? Strong? Meek? Yeah, definitely faithful. Compassionate? What else? Anything else? How is he when he comes down and finds out? Real mad. Yep. Sure. 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 Yeah, the prophet to Pharaoh, right? I left the prophet to Pharaoh in charge. Surely everything is fine. God says, oh, they made this golden calf. They couldn't have done that. They can't be that bad. Let me go down and see. Super angry. What does he do with this calf? What's the thing that he does? Anybody remember? I love this detail. I love this detail. Grinds it up and makes them drink it. Where else do we know about this? Anybody real, like Levitical law expert? Huh? Oh, I thought. Anybody? Somebody knows this. So in Leviticus, I forget where it is in Leviticus, it talks about if you suspect your wife of being an adulteress, you take dust out of the tabernacle, you put it into a drink, and you make them drink it. And if they get sick, they've done it, you need to kill her. If they don't get sick, she's fine. Somebody look that up for me. I forget what chapter that is, but it's... So again, I don't know if you all talked about how as the people come up to the mountain, it is like a marriage, right? It can be compared to a marriage ceremony of the people coming up to God. God is saying, will you marry me? I am giving you this law. Will you come live with me? Will you be my people? And the people say, we will do it. They say, I do. And then they immediately go out and commit adultery, immediately, and they are given the test. They grind up the calf, put it in the water, drink the water, and then something happens so that there's some kind of mark or some way that Moses and the Levites can figure out who they're going to go kill, right? Moses gathers the Levites at the tent, or the opening of the camp, and kills 3,000 people. And then there's a plague on top of that. So I guess one kind of interesting thought question, and I definitely don't have an answer to this. How is Moses reacting and doing something in haste different from Aaron reacting and doing something in haste? Again, I'm given hindsight to know that what Moses did was okay, right? He's not condemned for the actions he took. And Aaron is certainly condemned for the actions he took. Moses was being a man of God, Aaron was being a man of the people. Okay? I like that answer. Yep. It threw the stuff in. It just happened. It just happened. Because calves are easy to carve. And again, I don't have a good answer for that question. It's something I think about. Like, how do I be more like Moses and less like Aaron? When is it okay to make a decision quickly, and when is it not? That's only my real question. So I'm welcome to hear anybody's thoughts. He had God's righteous indignation. He does. Then he goes and sees what they did. I do find that interesting. He's pleading for them. And then he goes and sees what they did. He throws down the tablets and then starts gathering his brothers. Right. Maybe they're the instigators. Again, we don't. I certainly think that's what's implied, but I don't know. Any other thoughts? Yes. Right. Right. Yep. Yeah. No, I understand. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They wait till everybody's store, go in, start killing people. Any other thoughts here? Again, I'm sorry I don't have a lot of answers. All right. How would you describe God in one word? Yeah. You got to try. Omnipotent. In this story, would you? In this story, if you had to describe God in the story, very angry. Willing to wipe them out. Anything else? Another word? Faithful. Like that word. Merciful. That word. Does change his mind. Yeah, it's a really powerful image of a man talking with God and getting him to change. So the word where he says burn hot, I will burn hot, that is the same word that Cain uses to talk about Abel. Again, I'm not a word expert by any means, but I do find it interesting whenever words are repeated across different, like across language, because again, it kind of gives you a fuller picture of we can feel the same thing that God felt. To burn hot towards your brother, to burn hot towards the people, or to be ready to kill them. Okay? Joshua's word was merciful, but I think all these other traits apply, right? One, again, we can't put God in a box, so I'm sorry for trying. But two, he has certainly changes throughout the story. He is burning hot, ready to kill them, and then he is merciful towards them. He's also just. He does deliver a plague as punishment and says he won't forgive the people that have sinned against him, which I do find interesting. If you flash ahead, it's not technically in tonight's reading, but in Exodus 34, where Moses asks to see God, and Moses goes to a crag, and he puts his hand over him, and he passes before him and describes himself. God describes himself. One of my favorite verses is where Exodus 34:6, where God says he is just, he is merciful, but he will by no means clear the guilty or deliver punishment. And this is kind of, again, a full picture of that character. All right, chapter 33. What happens in chapter 33? Somebody read me the heading. The heading in your Bible, just read it. Commanded to leave Sinai. They're on the road again. So I think this is interesting in the terms of we've spent the last 4 chapters. So if you go whatever, look at my notes here. In chapter 24, the people say, we will do. The elders go up the mountain. They eat. Then in 25, Moses goes up the mountain. So from chapter 25 to chapter 31, Moses is on the mountain. So you get 6 full chapters of Moses being on the mountain, being given all of these things about what it means to live with God. Again, they've just gotten married. Now they're going to move in together. Moses has to go get all of the HOA rules and all of the things that talk about how you're going to live with God. You need to have this stand. You need to have this table. You got to have an ark. You're going to give this much money. You're going to build me this tent. You're going to have an altar. You're going to do the court. Here's how you make the oil for the lamps. Here's how you make the garments for the priests. Here's how you're going to make sure the priests are okay. Here's how you make the altar. Here's how you're going to do taxes. Here's how you're going to put oil in this basin. Here's the guys that are going to build all this for you. Hey, the people are building this golden calf. So we've been given all of these rules for living with God. We immediately see the people breaking them, and we see the danger of living with God. I don't think that should be discounted here, of saying it can be dangerous to say I am a follower or to try and be a follower but not truly be dedicated. That can be a dangerous place to be. If it is just Levites that have had this problem, like Theron suggested, or if it's the people themselves, some selection of the people as a whole who have committed this sin to pressure for this calf, they are punished for them. They die. And we see this later, again, where the people are swallowed up. Right? The earth opens and they are swallowed up. So living with God can be a dangerous thing if you are not actually dedicated. And I find that kind of interesting. Any thoughts there before we keep moving? We got about 10 minutes. Yes? No, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He certainly, he falls victim to the same, I have to do something right now, and this is the thing I'm going to do, crap. And doesn't get to go to the land because of it. Any other thoughts? Okay, so one phrase I want to point out is they take off their ornament. What does that mean? Sure. They take off all the loot. That's at least what I read. They take off all the loot that they got from Egypt on their way out of town. figuratively, what does it mean to strip off your ornaments? Humble yourself. What else? Anybody else got any scriptures here? Where else do we read about in the New Testament about stripping off who you are and becoming a new person? Stripping off the old man. Is this concept repeated anywhere? Certainly, right? So I think this idea of taking off your ornaments, taking off who you were, you have been this person who made this thing, take off who you were and be my people. Like, I just find that kind of poetic and interesting. All right, we're going to try and wrap up here. I feel like we all really love to focus on the golden calf in this story, and probably rightfully so, right? It is pivotal to the history of the people. But I think as we keep hinting on, or maybe I keep just thinking about, is like the stories that we tell our children, the stories we tell ourselves, the things we take in will shape how we see the world around us. And so being in this class is obviously, should be, hopefully, good for us to read God's Word and let that shape the way we see the world. The Israelites have been in captivity for a long time. They have absorbed part of this culture, as we keep hammering on, and they have tried to make God fit into that culture. Is anybody guilty of trying to make God fit into our culture today? I am certainly guilty of that. More often than I would really care to admit, to be honest with you. In saying like, well, it's okay if X or okay for Y, or that's our culture today, and it's not technically wrong, but maybe the concept is this, or whatever. And I think we all need to be careful. To me, the lesson here is be careful on how we apply the culture that we are in, the cultures we're used to God's Word. Any thoughts here? I'm just throwing out thoughts, people. I'm like trying to get some conversation. Sorry, I'm not very good at asking questions. Yeah. Sure. Right. No. God didn't make those justifications. Yes. Yeah. And so, again, like I kind of alluded to earlier, what is this societally, even as I think mankind, because I think it's recorded in the Bible for us too, this idea of I need to do something is rewarded heavily, okay? In times of crisis or times of panic, we want a leader that will take charge and do something as people. Would anybody disagree with that statement? But we're given different examples here of the wrong thing to do and the right thing to do. So, and this isn't the first time we've seen this, right? I think you could potentially apply that to like Abraham and Sarah. They were confronted with a real problem about the child of promise, and so they didn't know how that was going to happen. So they said, all right, I'm taking this into my own hands. I'm doing it my way. Here with Aaron, he's presented with a problem of the people pressuring him to do something, and he says, all right, we're going to do it this way. Like we've alluded to again, King Saul, when he offers the sacrifices, he doesn't wait for Samuel. He says, all right, I'm doing it my way. I've got to keep the people happy. And so do we value, one, the opinions of people? Are we a politician trying to value the opinions of people more than we value the opinion of God? Two, how much emphasis do we put on our daily lives of resting or being patient enough to make a good decision versus a decision. And maybe that's the only 2 points for that one. But or in 3, how much do we try and make God fit into our ideas of culture? So like between those 3 things, for myself, how often do I, right, at work, the place that I work, right, we reward people for taking charge and getting things done, as most workplaces do. If you are a go-getter, if you have ownership, if you're very cross-functional and you're good at maneuvering with people and making sure that the team is really rallied behind your idea, you will go far because you are rewarded with success in our humanistic world based on getting things done. But like we talked about way back in chapter 31, God points out these 2 men who are just men to go do this work. He didn't say Moses and Aaron are going to do this. He didn't say the Levites are going to do this. He didn't say these special select group of people. He just says these 2 guys are going to be given the skill to do this. And so I think there's something to this value. There's something to the value of resting long enough on a decision. Obviously, you can't go too long, right? There's a balance there. Where the line is, I have no idea. But how often do I, when I ask myself, how often do I take a breath and try and make sure that I'm making the right decision versus just a decision? How often do I actually pause long enough to ensure I am making the right decision? Any thoughts here? Yes? Yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that insight. Anybody else? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We have to build our character, for anybody that can't hear, so that we can try and train our gut decisions to be better. I'll leave you all with this, right? When we say you're stripped of our ornaments, all these are kind of building to this idea. We're stripped of your ornaments. In C.S. Lewis, in Mere Christianity, uses the metaphor of a garden. And it says, you know, we as people like to weed our garden, the garden being your lives. You want Jesus to come and help weed your garden. Pull out the bad things, pull out the things that are holding you back, pull out the things that you don't like. When in reality, what he's asking you to do is completely plow it up and start over. And say, you need to take who you were and become someone different. And so fill it with all of the good things, right? Fill it with decisions, or fill it with stories that will help us make better decisions so we can react in a way that is appropriate for God. Thank you all so much. Sorry, I'm a little bad at questions, but thank you all for helping me get through this.